Hey guys, how are you doing? This is Nabi About You, here to bring you intimate truth. Guess what? It's the truth that you embrace that makes you free. That's right. All right, so um, I wanted to come in here and talk about a few things. Now, this is the time where we would say Chag Sameach, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing. And why are we doing that? Because this is the time for Chanuka. CH, yeah, I know you see H, but it's CH, Chanukah, because the first letter is a Chet. All right, so I am trying to pull up, whoops. We're gonna be going through the Maccabees, and we go through the Maccabees simply because we need to know what really happened. So there's like this whole rumor that there's this entire rumor that's saying that, oh, well, there was this miracle and the oil, we didn't have enough oil, but it magically lasted for 8 days. Don't believe the hype. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to read, and so that we can have some background. Now, this is not going to be a I'm going to read first and second. It's kind of long, but go with me. And so, it's really interesting how, we just hear stuff and we just go with it. And when you are doing that and not researching, you miss out for a lot, and then you're misinformed, and then what you end up doing, let me bring this over here. What you end up doing is perpetuating that which is not true. I mean, we see that with the nativity scene. Like the whole scene is wrong. The First of all, there were not three wise men. I know where they got it from, but that's unbiblical. And people might go, well, that's okay. Well, they weren't there when Yeshua was born. By the time, as the scripture says, that they got to him, he was about 2 years old. And guess where they were? In the house. That's what the Bible says. They were at the house. And based on the offering that was given because of the law, they gave a poor person's offering. But if they came with frankincense and gold but wait a minute, then why did they only give a poor man's offering? Well, because they didn't have the money yet. But I digress. So we're going to be reading from First Maccabees on this particular portion. This is part 1. And what I want to do is, let me bring this down. And first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to my replay viewers. You guys totally rock. Sorry about that noise in the background. I can't stop them from showing up. Can't stop them from showing up. So we are going to be in the Maccabees. 1 Maccabees. All right. So with that said, let me move this down. Gonna make this a little bit bigger, and there you go. And this is where all the magic happens. So we're in 1 Maccabees, and we're going to find out who the Maccabees were. We're going to find out what was the big deal about the war. We're going to find out all of that, right? And so we can't, well, let me say this, because we cannot afford to miss opportunities to win people, right? Because we don't want to give them misinformation, right? We don't want to do that. Okay? So, with that said, let us get started. And of course, if you have any questions, post them down at the bottom and I will get back to you. Okay, so Verse 1, chapter 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out from the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece, and made many wars and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereunto he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died. And his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death they put on crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out from a wicked root Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus, the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went out there of Israel wicked men, who persuaded men, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we had much sorrow. So this device pleased them. Then certain of the people were so forward herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Verse 16. And when the kingdom was established from Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him, and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again into the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the gold ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and gold, and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoke very proudly. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all of the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector the chief collector of tribute unto cities of Judah, who came into Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people in Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem. They laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made a habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. Her children, her sanctuary, was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into a reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers into Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices and drink offerings into the temple, and they that should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifices swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law, and change all of the ordinances. And whosoever should do not according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all of the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor. Now, the 15th day of the month, Caslev, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in places the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire. And whosoever was found with any book of the testament, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the city. Now the 20th day of the month they did sacrifice unto the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had their children to be circumcised, and they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and conformed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Whether they, wherefore, the rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died. And there was great wrath upon Israel. So, That is the end of reading of chapter 1. I will continue with chapter 2. We have to understand what's going on in this text. It said, with their authorities, they were doing this thing. Because these people, these men and these women, wanted to serve God and do as He has already established, but men came in, not Hebrews, but Gentiles came in, and they wanted to change ordinances. They wanted to change the Sabbath day for a different day. They wanted sun worship. But we are going to continue in this story, and we are going to continue to not just read it, but share it with our children. I will see you for chapter 2.